Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the American Civil War. Today we have Battle of New Bern, Burnside in North Carolina. Kind of interesting that Burnside and Bern are both within the same context of the name of the battle. Could it be coincidence? We will see. Glad you're here. Hit that like button. Let's go. Warhawk. Being about to land on the soil of North Carolina, the general commanding desires his soldiers to remember that they are here to support the Constitution and the laws, to put down the rebellion, and to protect the persons and property of the loyal and peaceful citizens of the state. Brigadier General Ambrose Burnside. Wonder what time of the year we're in already. Probably March?
As part of his grand strategy for defeating the Confederacy, Major General George B. McClellan, Commander-in-Chief of the Union Army of the Potomac, arranged for a number of expeditions to harass the fringes of the southern states that would force the Confederacy to send troops to confront these expeditions, thus weakening the main field army in Virginia and making it easier for McClellan to attack Richmond in his planned Peninsula Campaign set to start in the spring of 1862.
Yeah, because McClellan and the Virginia side has kind of just been sitting on it since the Battle of First Manassas.
One such expedition was placed under the command of Brigadier General Ambrose Everett Burnside, a West Point graduate who had remained in the U.S. Army until 1852, when he resigned and created an arms company that manufactured his own invention, the Burnside carbine.
Oh, so this guy invented sideburns and a carbine? Okay.
The company went bankrupt, after which McClellan offered his friend a position with the railroad company he worked for. On July 21, 1861, Burnside, as a colonel in Irvin McDowell's army, commanded a brigade during the Battle of Bull Run, or Manassas, after which, in spite of a lackluster performance at Matthews Hill, Burnside was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General and was training troops in the Washington, D.C. area when Major General McClellan tasked him with preparing an expedition. General McClellan instructed Burnside that his troops, which assembled at Annapolis, Maryland, during the late fall and winter of 1861,
so this is the Outer Banks of North Carolina,
would be sent to Hatteras Inlet in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where the Federals had established a base in August of 1861. From there, Burnside was instructed to attack and capture Roanoke Island, where the Confederates had a fortified base. Burnside was then to attack the city of New Bern, then to occupy both Fort Harbor and capture Fort Macon.
That's a huge task. You got to capture a base on an island, and then you got to also go inland. Big task.
Once these objectives had been accomplished, Burnside would be in a position to advance inland toward the strategic railroads that supplied the Confederate forces in Virginia. Throughout the fall and winter of 1861, Brigadier General Burnside assembles a force which he brands the Coast Division of the U.S. Army, comprised of 15,000 soldiers and accompanied by an Army-led flotilla of wooden gunboats and supply ships. Cooperating with General Burnside were vessels of the U.S. Navy's North Atlantic Blocking Squadron under the command of Flag Officer Lewis M. Goldsborough.
That's a lot.
The Coast Division leaves Annapolis in early January 1862, only to encounter two severe northeaster cyclones that strike the coast and cause severe damage to many ships. In spite of the weather, the Coast Division manages to get across the sandbars at Hatteras Inlet and moves to attack Roanoke Island. The resulting engagement on February 7th to 8th, 1862, the Battle of Roanoke Island, ends in a major Union victory. Burnside's men capture the island and almost 2,500 Southerners. Union Navy vessels pursue the Confederate Navy's retreating North Carolina squadron and destroys it at the Battle of Elizabeth City on February 10th. With the Yankees in control of much of the state's inland sounds, Governor Henry T. Clark pesters the Confederate government for reinforcements. However, few are forthcoming because the High Command believes that Burnside will attack the port of Norfolk, Virginia, from the south. The Confederates thus concentrate troops to defend the strategically important port city rather than reinforce the outer banks of North Carolina.
I mean, strategically, it makes more sense for Norfolk to be like a landing point or a attack point to kind of squeeze the top and the bottom and cut them and connect the two. This seems very meticulous. Very meticulous.
The Confederate commander in North Carolina, Brigadier General Richard C. Gatlin, feels that...
Is this the guy that Gatlin gun? I don't know. I'm just saying things.
Burnside will move next against New Bern, the state's second largest city with a population of almost 5,000 people. With some officers believe that Burnside will attack the port of Wilmington instead of New Bern, so the available troops are divided between the two cities. The city of New Bern is situated where the Trent and Neuse Rivers converge and serve as the headquarters of the District of the Pamlico, commanded by Brigadier General Lawrence O'Brien Branch. Earthwork forts had been constructed in 1861 on the west bank of the Neuse River to repel any Union Navy warship that might steam upriver. And after Branch took command, his men, assisted by conscripted slaves, worked to strengthen and expand the city's defenses. 13 miles below New Bern is Slocum's Creek, a likely landing point for the Yankees. A couple miles north of this creek, Branch's men erect the Croton breastworks, named after nearby Croton Sound, a line of defenses which would force the Federals into a frontal assault because an impassable swamp protects the western end of this line. 5 miles north of the Croton Works is a 4-gun fort called Fort Dixie. A mile north of Fort Dixie is the main Confederate line of defensive earthworks. Fort Thompson, mounting 14 cannon, anchors this line, which runs a mile west to the Atlantic and North Carolina Railroad.
Wish it had tracks on it because I couldn't tell that was a railroad, but I understand now.
Beyond the railroad, the flat terrain gives way to small hills with swampy bogs in between. 2 smaller forts guard the river in the 4 miles between Fort Thompson and New Bern itself. Brigadier General Burnside leaves Roanoke Island on March 11th with around 11,000 troops in his coast division. Captain Stephen C. Rowan brings 13 Union Navy gunboats to protect the troop ships and bombard the enemy defenses. The Union soldiers disembark from their vessels on the morning of March 13th at Slocum's Creek. In spite of warning from civilians who watched the Union ships steam up the Neuse River, Brigadier General Branch is not quick enough to send troops to man the Croton line, which is quickly occupied by Burnside's men without resistance. Branch abandons Fort Dixie and concentrates his men behind the Fort Thompson line as the Yankees march toward New Bern, delayed by rain that lasts much of the day and turns the dirt roads to mud. Branch has around 4,000 soldiers to oppose Burnside. Aware that the Federals are heading towards New Bern, troops from Wilmington and from points in South Carolina are sent to reinforce Branch's men, but they do not arrive in time for the coming battle. From left to right, commencing at the river, the Confederate line consists of Fort Thompson, then the 27th, 37th, 7th, and 35th North Carolina
33rd. That's funny. 33rd
infantry regiments, with a militia battalion posted at the railroad. 2 companies of heavy artillery are armed as infantry and stationed with the infantry behind the breastworks. Another artillery company is in the process of placing 2 cannons on the railroad itself even as the engagement begins the next day. 10 cannon from 2 light artillery batteries add their firepower to the infantry. West of the railroad, the 26th North Carolina is instructed to erect small forts on the hillocks sticking out of the swampy terrain. This regiment is reinforced by 2 cannon, 2 companies of cavalry, and an independent infantry company. Branch has 1 regiment, the 33rd North Carolina, held in reserve, along with most of the 2nd North Carolina Cavalry. Brigadier General Burnside's troops from his coast division are divided into 3 brigades.
Dang, he's got a column of like 4 deep too.
Respectively led by Brigadier Generals John G. Foster, Jesse L. Reno, and John G. Park. Well aware of the Confederate defenses, as Northern sympathizers in New Bern are in communication with the Federals, General Burnside decides to deploy Foster's 1st Brigade, consisting of the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 27th Massachusetts and 10th Connecticut, to launch a frontal attack on the Confederate line. Brigadier General Jesse Reno's 2nd Brigade, comprised of the 21st Massachusetts, 9th New Jersey, 51st New York, and 51st Pennsylvania, is to move up along the railroad and attempt to outflank the rebel line at the railroad itself. Brigadier General Park's 3rd Brigade, made up of the 4th and 5th Rhode Island and the 8th and 11th Connecticut, are to be held in reserve and used as needed. 8 light cannon from the Army transports accompany the troops and are ordered to support Foster's attack. The first shots of the Battle of New Bern are fired around 7:30 a.m. on March 14, 1862, when Foster's troops emerge from the woods in front of the Confederate line and open fire with a concentrated volley. As the morning fog wanes, Captain Rowan's warships add their firepower to the fight, but remain downstream from Fort Thompson, being wary of rows of sharpened stakes in the river that had been placed there to prevent enemy ships from moving upstream. Brigadier General Branch's men return fire. The heavy volume of musketry and cannon prevents General Foster's men from making any headway as both sides settle down to firing at one another in a steady stream. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Reno's troops advance along the railroad. The 21st Massachusetts, in the lead, fires a leveled volley on the artillery company trying to place their 2 cannon on the rail line and drives them off. The 21st
So one thing I noticed right off the bat is like there's no naval attempt up the river, because the last time they tried that was like at Fort Donaldson. That was a horrendous loss by foot.
Massachusetts then fires another heavy volley on the militia battalion, which panics and flees from the battlefield, followed by elements of the 35th North Carolina. The remainder of the 35th North Carolina, reinforced by part of the 37th North Carolina, drives the 21st Massachusetts back with a counter volley. As General Reno personally surveys the situation and decides to bring the rest of his brigade forward, men from the 26th North Carolina spot the general and open fire. Surprised, Reno orders the rest of his brigade to deploy in the swampy woods west of the railroad to confront the Confederates there. As Reno's men face the 26th North Carolina, Branch sends forward his reserve regiment, the 33rd North Carolina, to reinforce the 26th North Carolina and plug the gap in the line made when the militia retreated. By the time the 33rd North Carolina had moved forward, Brigadier General Park's 3rd Brigade moved up along the railroad. The 11th Connecticut is sent forward to reinforce Foster's stalled attack. But Park's remaining 3 regiments move forward and exploit the confusion caused by the initial attack of the 21st Massachusetts. Against light opposition, Park's men break into the center of the Confederate line and force Branch, who had already sent his reserve regiment forward, to order a general retreat.
Yeah, I bet at this point when they're even, they're leaving, so they're gonna probably all retreat. And then the left side, I don't know what happens on the left side though. They might stay a little bit longer.
As the Confederate fire slackens, Foster's regiment surge forward and occupy the line of breastworks as the enemy retreats. Beyond the railroad, the 26th and 33rd North Carolina infantry regiments do not receive the order to retreat and are almost completely cut off before their officers are able to realize the situation and order a retreat. Also sensing the absence of organized resistance, Captain Rowan orders his ship captains to force their way through the river obstacles and make their way upstream towards New Bern. Suffering no significant damage as they ram their way through the river spikes, Rowan's ships head upriver towards New Bern. Individual ships drop out of the race and land sailors to take possession of the abandoned Confederate river forts, while some vessels reach New Bern and land detachments of sailors to assist citizens in putting out fires that had been set by retreating troops to burn military stores in the city.
Scorched earth.
Brigadier General Branch intends to rally his troops to protect New Bern, but the rapid pace of the naval vessels forces him to retreat inland to Kinston. Confederate casualties for the Battle of New Bern are total 68 killed, 116 wounded, and 425 captured or missing, for a total of 609 losses. Only 2 cannon are saved, and the soldiers lose all their equipment and their camps.
This just really had to do more about positioning, as you can tell. 90 killed to 68, 385 to 116, 1 to 425. It's crazy that one guy got captured for the Union, but it could have been a scout or someone that was looking ahead. But the 425, that tells you that they moved pretty quickly onward and they were able to encroach and take people by surprise. So yeah, interesting.
Burnside's Coast Division had suffered a loss of 90 killed, 385 wounded, and a single man captured, for a total of 476 Union casualties. Burnside has just captured North Carolina's second largest city, which the Union will occupy for the rest of the war. Because of its location, Union-occupied New Bern will always pose a threat to the railroads further inland.
It's a drop zone continuously. As long as they have, no problems getting people in there, it's always going to be a drop zone for new troops to come in from New Bern now,
forcing the Confederacy to leave a number of troops to defend the state against any sudden Union advance inland.
Good video. We've already said a little bit about it, but yeah, it seems like they took it for a surprise. And yeah, this is a strategic point now that they can use to drop more people inward. So yeah, fun video. Also, of course, remember to subscribe to Warhawk, the provider of said video. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys next time. Peace out and goodbye.